Hi, I'm Ian Collins, and this is my capstone project. For my capstone, what I wanted to do at the beginning, I thought about shadowing doctors, because I've always been interested in the hospital, because my dad's worked there for most of my life. And so I was thinking through the different fields I could do there, and one of the ones that came up was anesthesiology, which is, those are the people that when you go into surgery, they put you under and they make sure your vitals are all good, and they make sure you come up not feeling too much pain. But in the beginning of this year, or the beginning of the school year, the UT Medical Center was going through an accreditation process, which, as I'm sure you will know, it's all very stressful. So we thought that that wasn't the best idea to go forward, but my dad had the idea when I was talking to him of, oh, I should shadow some of the vendors he works with, because I also have an interest in business. And so that was what I decided to do. So I have shadowed 4 different vendors from different companies, different fields. And I really had no idea what was going to go on in the actual job shadowing when I signed up for it. I thought it was honestly going to be a lot of paperwork. I thought, oh, this might be a little bit boring. But my first day, I crushed all of the expectations. My first day, it was with this lady right here. This is Misty from DeRoyal. Never actually caught her last name. Yeah, she works with DeRoyal. She sells these. These are called wound vacs. So when you get like a cut or something, not like a tiny little paper cut, like a bad cut, it might get infected. And then when it's infected, you have to get one of these placed on the wound, and it sucks out all the infection and makes sure you're healthy when you're healed. This is actually their large product. Now they've downsized to something probably about half as big as that. But when we started that day, we were at UT Medical Center, and we were checking in on some of the wound vacs that they had in stock. DeRoyal has this incredible system called Continuum, which tracks all of their products, like the wound vacs. It keeps them in a secure environment, climate controlled, all of that. And it's amazing at a hospital. You think it'd be so orderly, but things go missing all the time. A nurse might take it from a patient, forget to log it in. They might have it still stowed away at the nurse's station. So we spent the first part of the day hunting down that wound vac. Then after that, we went to Blunt Memorial Hospital in their in their nursing home, and they had some wound vacs that they needed maintenance. They had requested some new ones to replace the old ones. And so we went there. We had to lug all the new ones in. They had to. Sadly, we did not have the correct pipe that they needed for that. The regulator for that has a different materials used for it than the smaller ones do. The smaller ones are much more simple. Sadly, she didn't have that, so we couldn't fix it then. But luckily, the Blunt Memorial proper, they needed 2 of the bigger wound vacs, so we had to take them up there. We met with the people there. They were very nice. And then after that, we had a case manager luncheon. The case managers, they're the people that manage all of the patient's files. They make sure everything is checked out when they have prescriptions, whether they have certain products used on them. So we picked up Olive Garden for them, went back to the hospital, and we hosted the lunch, which went pretty well. It was there that I also learned about the incredible complexity of the healthcare industry. So when you need a wound vac, you might also need to be able to take it home. But DeRoyal, the company she works for, cannot provide that. That's when the DME comes in. Whereas DeRoyal partners with the hospital to bring the wound vac to the patient in the hospital, the DME, which is the durable medical equipment, they partner with the hospital to bring the wound vac home with the patient through their insurance and copay. I won't bore you with the details, but it was just a complete info dump of all this stuff I had to pick up on. It was really fascinating, too. And after that luncheon, the day ended, and I began preparing for the second day. And I have skipped to day 3, but that's important. Day 2 is when these came in. So day 3, I was shadowing a family friend of mine, Tony Laconis. He also works for DeRoyal, and he basically sells something like 500,000 products. It's basically everything that's not specialized, like the wound vacs. And so we started off his day. We went down to Blunt Memorial again, this time in their surgical clinic. And you know how in the surgical theaters they have like the big lights that are above the bed? Well, he sells grips for those, and they were having issues with the grips. They weren't locking on properly, so he had to demo a couple of different grips that they had, and he had some on hand because he knew this was going to be an issue. But there wasn't a whole lot going on with his day. His day mainly taught me about the importance of relationship building with his clients. Because whenever his clients would talk to me, they would always say, oh, he's just the absolute best. He never lies to us. He's always honest. He's always on time. And really just showed me how you can't just only be focused on selling the product to the person. You have to be concerned about them. Like he always had a bag of candy to give to the people that he met. So it was really nice to see just like how the more, I guess, mundane aspects of their job was, just the relationship building, making sure that you have a repeated client. A couple of other notable things that happened that day was at UT Medical Center, they were swapping, or they were getting a new product for knee surgery patients. Typically, this was like putting ice on the wound, basically. They have two things, like an active and a passive cooling system. And active, it has a pump that feeds into the wrap around the knee, and then that regulates the temperature all the time. And there's no risk of frostbite like it would be with the passive, which you shove an ice pack on there. But it's also incredibly expensive to maintain. So the product he was selling was a passive ice wrap for the knee, and they had to figure out a system with the nursing staff of how to replace the packs when they melted. And because they were in contact with the patient's skin, the hospital policy is that those items used on their skin cannot be used for any other patient. So they had to figure out how to keep those tagged for that patient and then figure a system to swap them whenever they needed swapping. My fourth day was with Scott Torbett. This is a surgery day. He works with Zimmer Biomet. He sells spinal braces. And this was like a 5 to 6 hour procedure I had to sit in. They started it off, so the patient is lying on their back on the table. They go through the front of the neck to the spine because the spine has broken in some way and it is impinging on the nerve. So this guy, he was only about 27 in a motorcycle accident, and he had lost some of the movement in his extremities, so they were checking him out to see. And it was one of his cervical vertebrae had broken and was now pitching on that nerve. So what they have to do, they have you down on the table, they open up your neck, they peel back all of the tubing that you might have, they get to the neck, and then the not-so-gentle process of breaking apart your spine to clear out a hole big enough for one of these. This is one of the demo models that's used to just size up the hole, how much they need to pull out so they can put it in. And it's really not as gentle as you might think, because you can see the one that they used there. They would screw it onto one of these, then they would take a hammer once they had cleared out all the way and just start pounding it in there. It was very interesting to watch. And his product is these, but the actual versions, they're porous. So they harvest bone from all of the bone that they take away, and then they put it into the porous spinal brace. And what that does is when they put it in there and they screw it all on, that allows the bone to connect more fully and better than it has in previous products. So this is really interesting just to be able to see how their products are actually used. There's another info dump coming your way. This Ascend is the program that the hospital uses to get most of their products. Ascend is a program from the Premier Medical Group. It's a way of saving hospitals money. So Premier will go into these companies like Abbott Medical, Royal, and they'll negotiate for contracts of goods that most all hospitals need, like gloves, lights, all of these things. And so when you commit to the program, they give you these contracts. Say there's 20 contracts, and they might give you 3 opt-outs just in case you already have like a better contract with another company. So if you use those 3 opt-outs, you can't use any more. You have to select all of those. And then they used a mountain climb as their go-to catch for the program, and there was different levels of commitment, like the base camp all the way to the summit. And the higher up you got on that commitment level, the more, like the people at the top, they would have no opt-outs. They would be all in for the premiere. And those would typically be the newer, younger hospitals. UTs and older hospitals, so they have a lot of their own contracts that they've worked out. So they weren't quite as committed as others, but they still had plenty of it because it was helping save them money. And that was about a 3-hour meeting where they discussed all the facets of this Ascend program. They went through each of the levels of programs and looked at each of the contracts and said, oh, this isn't right, I think we should be opted in on this. And then they talked about other competing offers they had from other companies. It was really interesting to learn about, because I had seen a little glimpse of it through my father and just what he told me at work, but I've never gotten to sit in on what he does. So it was really fascinating to learn all about that. And then my second day was with Erin Wright. She was from Abbott Medical. She sells these. These are heart catheters, so if you have, say, high cholesterol or something, your veins around your heart are getting clogged. Typically, an angioplasty might have been done because this is a relatively new procedure, the heart catheterization. Angioplasty is when they put a balloon past the blockage, they expand the balloon, and it just kind of pushes it out and takes it out. But now we have heart catheterization. And that basically, so they'll put this wire, it's called a guide wire. They'll lead this up until the affected area of the heart vein. I think this is the anterior aortic descending. So they'll open up an incision in either your wrist or your groin and take this wire. This is actually the Iron Man guide wire. This is much stiffer. And this is the Whisper. This is used for more tortuous vein pathways. So they'll take this, they'll run it all the way up to your heart, and then they'll find the blockage. They have tracer fluid that they pump in there. They find the blockage, and then once they have found the blockage, they take this. This is the stent itself. And the way these packages are done, it's really neat. So the person that, say, Miss Wright, she wouldn't have to be scrubbed up. She'll just take the package, peel it open, and the doctor can take it because it's sterile in the package. And all of these packages are demos. They're not, needed. So this is a rapid exchange stent as opposed to an over-the-wire stent. There's a key difference there. Okay, that's fine. So it's taken out. The wire goes through this, and the over-the-wire, it goes parallel to it. And then they run this through the veins to get to the blockage. And then, I don't know if you can see too well, but there's a tiny balloon with 2 tracer marks on it. And the doctor knows how long the balloon is. It's 2.25 millimeters, and then it has a diameter when it's expanded of 6 millimeters. So they'll use that to know how much they need to actually pump in. So once this is in the heart, they won't use a syringe, they'll use special medical equipment. If you can see it expands a little when pressure is in there. So they warm it up to the heart, make sure that the blockage is in between those two, then they expand it so the stent designs trials. And Miss Wright has been trying to get UT to go more towards science than the other competitors, and one of the poor doctors, he was unfortunate enough to just let slip a little bit of distrust of one of the other products, and she swooped in like a hawk. She was like, oh, well, this science product, she has all of this benefits to it that aren't proven in this other product. So that was really great to see just how she worked in that environment. I also got to know a lot of the doctors very well because it was a slower day, so I got to learn more about heart catheterizations in general, just like the history of it. One of the men, Dr. Charlie, he talked to me a lot about just like his history with it. He's been doing it probably for the longest of anybody there. And he actually has a slogan, men of class wear Zions, because he had to get one himself a couple years ago. I also got a beef steak or bison steak recipe off of him, which is I've yet to try out, but I need to. So this day was probably my favorite, just because I got to know the doctors very well, and I got to see some really cool stuff, and I got product to show off. And this entire thing has really opened my eyes to the world of marketing, which I really hadn't considered much in the past. But as I was doing this, I was also seeing that I was applying these same principles in the robotics team, because when we went down to the competition, we would have to basically market ourselves to the other teams, make sure they know what we can do in the event that they had to pick us in the finals. And then when we were able to pick people for the finals, I had to be able to talk to the other teams. I had a general idea of what they could do, but I had to figure out how we could maximize our efficiency in there. Also, it has helped in the various events we've had to put on for the robotics team. I've been the spokesperson for the robotics team, and I've loved every minute of it. It's so fun to be able to talk to people and just talk about something I love, which I think every event that we've had the robotics team at, it's been the talk of the show. So it's left me very conflicted about which major to choose, either accounting or marketing. I might do a major in one and a minor in the other, but yes, that was my capstone.